The meeting of the Shelton City Council for December 18th, 2018. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now's the time for the council. Any agenda items we want to change? Anything in the consent agenda we want to discuss? Seeing none, agenda is accepted. Before I get to council report, it looks like there may be some public comment. Just want to address, we have general public comment in a little bit. Make sure Donna has a card, and it will also have comment on each business and action item individually. So make sure Donna has a card, specify if you're here for general comment or on one of the action or business items. Okay, so starting with council reports, and I'm going to start with Councilmember Schmidt tonight.
Excellent. Good evening. Last week attended the MACECOM Legislative and Governing Board meeting with nothing to report, as well as the Thursday. Help me out here. See, that's what happens when you put me last. No, I can't say. And everything else that they did too. Anywho, anyways, staff meetings during the week, and I'll kick it over to you.
I apologize.
That's okay. It's all right. Keep me thinking here. So, Kathy, go ahead.
Last week, I attended the Employee Appreciation Luncheon, which was very encouraging to hear the department heads talk about their staff and how much they rely on and the good job they do. So that was a nice thing to attend. I attended the K-9 fundraiser where we painted wooden flags, and I did two. Needless to say, I only painted one. One person painted one for me, so we went home with two of those, which was a lot of fun. Monday, which was yesterday, I attended the Legislative Roundtable here. We met with Dan Griffey and Drew McEwen and talked about the upcoming budget for the state. And Thursday, I will be going on a tiny home tour to Olympia. That's my couple weeks.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Good evening, everyone. I've actually been under the weather, so I haven't been at too many things lately, but I did attend a very meaningful conversation with city staff and Mayor Rogers and a member of the shellfish industry regarding the potential closure in Hammersley Inlet. So that was a very interesting meeting. I look forward to next steps on that.
Okay, thank you. Last week, I also attended the Employee Appreciation Luncheon, and that was a great time to hear reports from the directors. Also met with Commissioner-elect Sharon Trask with Deputy Mayor Peterson, just to get to know her and discuss some city issues. We'll be on a tiny homes tour on Thursday and attending an exit interview from the state auditor on Thursday also. So, Councilmember Krantz.
You're good. Yes, I was also at the Employee Appreciation Lunch last week. My criminal justice board got canceled for tomorrow, so I will not be attending that. Other than any executive sessions, staff briefings, or whatever, I have nothing planned for the rest of this year, and so Merry Christmas.
Since our last meeting, I attended the retail business development on Tuesday the 4th, and our city meeting that night. On Thursday the 6th, regional economic forecast, and I attended a ribbon cutting, an after hours at the Cabin Tavern. On Friday, I put Shelton PD here. What's that mean? Oh, sorry. I met with Commissioner-elect Trask. And then on the 12th, I had a Housing Behavioral Health Board meeting in the morning and an afternoon lunch at the Lions Club and a business after hours. And on Friday, I attended Employee Appreciation. That was really a nice function. On Saturday, I did not paint a flag. I let my son do it for me. And that is my week. Except, oh no, I'm sorry, I attended the legislation preview yesterday. And today I attended Terry Drexler's farewell party, and that's it for the week.
Councilmember Dorsey?
All right. First thing I'd like to do is apologize for being gone so much. I've been really sick, so I haven't been much of anywhere, but I did get to go in the parade with my fellow people here in the back of a dump truck. So, and then that night I got excruciating pain, but it wasn't because of that. I did get to attend Mason Transit meeting today. It was my first real meeting in probably a month. Other than a study session I was able to go to. Just happened to be feeling good that night. Would like to say, though, that most of you probably think I wore this shirt and tie for you, but actually, I wore it for Mike McCarty today. This is his last meeting with us, and I wanted to send him off with a farewell.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Okay, it's time for general public comment. Everyone will have 3 minutes. We ask you identify yourself and just state if you're a resident of the city. And Donna?
I don't have any cards for general public.
Okay, no comments for general public, okay? Then we're on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Second?
Okay? All those in favor? Is there any discussion? I guess can't be any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're on to the business agenda. Do we have?
Yes.
Okay, so our first business agenda, or our only one, is a fee schedule update from Director Gregory.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As we discussed at our last study session, discussing the increase or change to the 2019 fee schedule. Just want to point out a few things before we start going through this fee schedule. We did add a few things for consideration to this that you did not see at the study session. I just didn't want to glaze over that. I wanted to point that out up front. It was a reclaimed GFC that would be a new charge. We can discuss that later on as we get down to it. And also the meter charge, we wanted to vet that out a little more and didn't have time to do that before the study session. We originally had 2 bids for all of our meter sizes, going from 3/4 inch up to 8 inch for water meters. We went back out. We wanted to make sure we were getting accurate information, so we acquired 2 more bids. So we had 4 total bids, which may have changed up or down in that fee that's proposed. So just wanted to point those out before we actually get to them and discuss them, so we don't miss those as we get down through that. And I would leave it open to the council. Would you like to go down through this list once again and discuss all of them, or point out certain questions that we may have moving forward?
Go ahead.
Well, that's the 2 things which you mentioned is my questions and what I was looking at. I didn't see anywhere in here about the reclaimed water fee. Is there any paperwork in this?
It's under the sewer section.
Okay.
It is under sewer. It is on page. It is on page 13, the bottom of page 13, highlighted in red.
Yeah, oh, I see it down there, okay. Yeah, the question I had about this is primarily have we had a fee before? Are we reducing that fee?
We have not had a fee before for water meters. It was a new proposal for not only the water section, but also the reclaim uses the same meters as water does to meter that consumption. So this would be a new fee for the reclaim. And then also, if you look at the top of page 14, a new reclaim general facilities charge. We don't have a lot of customers right now, but really wanted to get out in front of this before we actually get there. And I guess maybe just a little clarification and backstory to this without having a full study for GFCs and sewer rates in general is looking at, we did just have an update that did not involve reclaim water. But what the proposal is right now is we are looking at going out for a rate study for stormwater. But really typically what cities have done, and we haven't typically done in the past, which I would like to start to get to the point of doing all of the rate studies at one time. Having all of them from sewer to water to stormwater all in 1 year, which not having the ability to actually go out and study this right now, we would look at in 2 years when we would take a look at all of our rate studies once again.
And this is really only for where we've got the infrastructure already in the ground, right, up, kind of up there.
That is correct. It's
Yeah.
only
It's
basically,
not coming in here and, yeah.
correct. It's
And
basically
so-
north of the port property, because it goes, that reclaim line goes through the port property north out to 102 and then out to Corrections, out to Washington State Corrections.
Okay, that's, that questions on that. I'm satisfied with that.
My hand's up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question on page 11, the pump station inspection fee of $500. How many employees does it take to inspect that pump station, and how long does it take?
It's probably only one inspector, but it would be a very extensive inspection. It would be not only for the actual prep of that, but the actual installation is fairly extensive.
So,
We would be talking about a engineer tech 5 going out in the field for several hours at the fully loaded rate.
every time they would go, because we've changed it from the permit fee from $500 for multiple inspections to $500 per inspection.
Not a permit fee. This
Well, I
is an
know.
inspection fee.
Inspection fee.
Yes.
So
But-
we've, every single time they have to go out and spend that much time inspecting it if it was 3 times in a week?
We would hope after installation, normally those are either a skid mounted or they're installed completely. So we would hope that, and the thought here is that, and there's certainly, Mark and I have certainly talked about this, there's certainly some leeway within this. If this is something that we're going back out to because of they missed the position of a valve or a nut wasn't tightened down that we wanted to see later on, there's certainly some latitude there where we're not going to go back out and charge them, if anything, that full rate. And I think we've talked about that and come to a decision on that if it's something that's minor that we're going back out and it's simply a check, we're not going to charge the per trip fee. Now, if it is something that is just not done whatsoever, because we have been running into that, we are getting inspection calls right now for infiltration galleries. We're getting out to the job site. There's not even a hole in the ground for an infiltration gallery. That's really where this is coming from. If we start to see those repeat offenders, that we have that latitude to go ahead and charge that. It's not saying that we aren't going to have that discretionary value in there and say, we understand that maybe you missed a connection, you missed a certain aspect or element of the project that we're going to charge you to come back out. We're looking more at the repeat offenders that are having difficulties really understanding what the inspection is for and really wasting our time.
That's it on that one.
Anything else from the council before we get public comment?
Yeah, I got more things too. Does anybody else got any questions?
Page 9, I think it's a question for Mark. I may have missed this at the study session, so my apologies if that's the case, but there's been some increases to the pre-sub fees. pre-sub meeting fees.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how we ended up at those figures, or kind of where that came from, especially knowing that we really want to encourage multifamily housing right now, with housing shortages being as they are. Talk through that change.
Well, there's a couple schools of thought, and with pre-submission conferences or pre-application conferences, sometimes is what they're called, it's really the opportunity for the applicant for any development project to come in and meet with multiple disciplines within the city. So that's building, planning, public works with many utilities, including fire. So we've got 6 to 8 staff people, including our permit coordinator who managed that project, to sit down with them, provide them as much information so they can make a decision whether they're gonna move forward or not, or complete their application for their project. And it certainly doesn't capture all the costs, but at $100 or $150, we weren't coming close to capturing even a couple of those staff members' costs in there. So it was just an opportunity to get some equity with those meetings, but not charge the full amount. So as Jason Dose, our senior planner, often says, the $100 or the $150 is really a couple sheets of plywood, is what you might be saving by coming in and meeting with city staff and getting all the details and all the necessary code requirements up front before you even start your project. And it's fairly reasonable if you equate it as that, with a whatever, from a school district project to 20 million, or a house project that might be $100,000. It's really a lot of information that they can get up front so they can move cleanly through the project, and it might even save them on inspections and everything that we were talking about before. The people that don't take advantage of, sometimes we're doing design by inspection. So it's call out for an inspection, provide the input to them so they can fix it or meet the code requirements, and call out for the inspections again. And we certainly want to do as much of that up front as we can and provide the service, but we certainly would like to recoup some of those costs associated with our budgets so we can continue those staffing levels.
Thank you.
I had a couple more questions here. I'm seeing in some of these places, some 70%, 50%, 250% increases, and some that we never charge. I mean, I would hate to get in a situation where we are putting, driving rates up to the point to where we're driving away the builders that came back, just the past couple of years. So let's talk about this one here, and let's go to page number 14, if we could. And it's all in red, and so I'm not quite sure, there's the reclaimed water. Okay, we've talked about that. Is all of page 14 reclaimed water?
No, just the top section is reclaimed water.
Yeah, so
And
down-
then you've got the water section just under
Very
that.
good. So down below, I'm confused, I guess, and it's my fault here, but I know I paid for utility application fees for a 3/4 meter, 1-inch meter, and here it said no charge over here, and then down below it's come up with a different rate. And I guess I was confused because am I missing something? We always charge for like a application fee. But I see here it had no charge and it was X'd out.
Those crossed out red sections
Yeah.
were the meter charge. That was what the city was incurring the cost to place a meter. So let's just say it's a single-family residence. We go out, they tap the main, they run the line, they have a meter setter there inside the box. The city that then would purchase a meter and actually go out and install that meter on that yoke. So before, if you look at a single-family residence down below now that's proposed, the fee now would be to have the customer pay for that meter. So basically, you're looking at an additional $77 to the customer to purchase the meter. It would then be the city's meter, but this certainly gives us the opportunity to recoup some of those costs, especially when you start getting into some of those much larger meters. You can see when we get into some of those meters that are up at the 4-inch level at $2,500. That was the water utility that was eating the cost of that to make that installation.
You've refreshed my memory. We talked about this 3 or 4 months ago on us doing something rather than them doing it. I believe this is what we were talking about as far as setting these meters. Didn't we used to let them do it, or now we are letting them do it with their own backhoe guy or something? I'm just,
They're responsible for tapping the water main
Right.
and running that line. Then, like I said, they run the line from the water main to the box
Right.
that has a meter setter in it. So basically, it's just a blank piece of pipe. Then the city purchases the meter and actually comes out and installs it.
right. I'm okay on that. The one last question I have, I'm sorry to take this much time, is on page 7. Those are the increases I was talking about here for the flow test. We went from $40 to $140, and auto sprinklers system permit, 205 to 305. I mean, 250%, 70 and 50% increases. Generally that's pretty high, and it throws a little red flag up, so.
Yeah, these are specific to fire permits and applications within the IFC. I looked back as far back as 2011 and did not see these rates change from that point on. So somebody in this department previous never addressed those. It may have been because we contract out for our fire service with Central Mason. We currently pay $50,000 a year for just for fire marshal services. And any of those services, the fees are recouped through these permit activities. Well, these permit activities certainly weren't recouping $50,000 annually, but they weren't coming close to what any market rates are or what the actual service was. If you look at say the hydrant, we actually changed that to $140 flat fee rather than having different costs per hydrant. So if you had 10 hydrants up there, you'd pay 40 for the first, 20 for the second, and then $10 each for the other 8. So actually we have one fee, which I think would be a little easier to comprehend for a lot of people. But also it pays a one-time fee for somebody to go out and no matter how many hydrants, because they have to still go out in the field. They're making that trip, they're doing the prep, they're doing their plan review, they're checking per code, per IFC code, and going out and performing those inspections. So these are costs that the city's fire marshal from Central Mason gave us their estimate for how much time it takes for plan review and inspections based on their hourly rate.
Thank you.
Anything else from council?
Just a question.
Smith?
The current proposed 2019 budget, were these fees included in that portion of the 2019 budget? Was that reflected in potential revenue, et cetera?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe.
Okay.
they were.
Existing.
No.
One more question or comment, Mayor. Last time we discussed this at our study session, I was kind of going through these line by line, very similar to Councilmember Krantz, and saw like percentage increases, and I asked the question, what are we trying to get to here? And it was a cost recovery component, the cost of staff time, et cetera. And we've also kind of heard, and I've heard it a few times throughout the past several months, that people show up to City Hall and they've got a bar napkin sketch of what they want to do, and it ends up costing staff time in excess of what we would recuperate through any fee. So I guess my comment or question would be, as we move forward, let's try to not solve that problem through raising fees or impacting them through fees, or maybe look into this into the next year as to how we can maybe better educate and make that process a little bit smoother, potentially. I don't know what that means exactly. I'm not a builder, but bringing in the right minds to kind of tackle that as to, how can we stop that from happening in the future versus just like jack it up to make them do their homework. But that being said, that's understanding there is still a need for the city to be able to conduct business and keep the lights on, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, public comment.
We have Aaron Hall.
Hello.
Hi, Aaron.
So, good afternoon, members of City Council. My name is Erin Hall. I'm here on behalf of Olympia Master Builders. Olympia Master Builders is a trade association that represents the building industry, specifically the residential building industry in Mason, Lewis, Thurston, Grays Harbor, and Pacific counties. We're here today to speak a little bit about the proposed fee increases tonight. And so first and foremost, I want to thank your staff for meeting with me earlier this month and going through the proposal in a little bit more detail. It really helped us understand where you guys were coming from. As you move forward with this process, we really encourage you to look not only at the cost recovery that you need in terms of staffing needs, but also to take a look at some comparables around the region and make sure that Shelton is continuing to position itself in a way that it is an attractive community that will allow for development and allow people to come in and really feel welcomed and as though they're included. Most notably, we would recommend that you take a look at both Lacey and Chehalis. There are some pretty interesting disparities between some of the line items presented to you tonight and how those cities go about modeling their fee structure. Very notably from that is the pre-submission conference. Both cities have decided not to charge for that kind of activity because they recognize the value that they get by welcoming new development into the city and the value that they get in terms of saved staff time by having that one singular meeting that takes care of problems ahead of time rather than having to go back in and retroactively take care of them. Beyond that, the number I really want to drive home to you tonight is $675, which is the total cost that we anticipate will see rise in the construction of single-family homes. Now, that number by itself doesn't sound like a terribly large number, but from data that we have around the region in terms of requirements for lenders, for mortgage brokers, for down payments necessary for people to acquire a new house, we know that for about every $1,000 in the region, about 150 households are priced out of being able to purchase a new home. So with that $675, we can really conservatively estimate for Shelton that we're looking at about 50 or 60 households that won't be able to acquire a new family home. And that's really important because a house is far more than just the foundation and the roof. It's a place where people raise their children, where they get together and have family meals. It brings a lot of value to the community to have increased residential construction and the benefits that come out of that socially and collectively as a community. So please keep that in mind as you consider moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Anyone else for that? Okay. So, any additional comments from council?
I'd like to see some comparisons before we raise the rates, but just one.
I don't feel we have to do this in January 2nd. I would propose that we go back and see the comparisons and address the questions that were brought up by this lady. I do know that many years ago, for 10 years, we're building 2 homes a year. And then all of a sudden we lowered our rates and guess what? We started building houses. $675 per new home, single family home is a lot of money. And I'm not against what staff has done. They're trying to do their job and they're trying to provide a service and do what they need to do. But I don't think there's a huge rush on this. And I would definitely think that I would like to see the comparisons, especially in the cities that are kind of surrounding us. We are still trying to encourage affordable housing and at an affordable price. And so my suggestion would be that we take a look at the comps on this again and not rush this decision.
Okay, before we have any more discussion, I'll ask Craig, is there an issue if the council decided to delay to the 16th?
No, absolutely
Just-
not.
Okay.
Okay, with that said,
I would ask for clarification, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Is it comparisons on the proposed increases, or is there anything beyond that?
Or across the board.
As far as the fee schedule, do you want to see comparisons on our existing building permits that we're not proposing increases on today? Anything in addition that is in this fee schedule? Because that certainly would take some time and may not be able to prepare it by the Wednesday deadline for our next council meeting on the 16th.
And I'm going to go back, maybe to pitch this back to Mike and just maybe suggest another study session. If we're talking about actually discussing comparables, would that be the proper place to do that instead of maybe at another council meeting?
I defer to the council because I won't be here, but, if I were to be here, I'd say yes.
Okay.
I'm fine with
You're invited.
Any free on
What do we have on
Nice, nice
Yeah, I
thought.
think that would be a discussion maybe even.
whenever it's available next.
Okay, so we'll move it to the next study session.
26.
No, not the 26th,
That's the day after Christmas.
which would be the 9th, I believe.
I think
For
one
the eighth.
question,
The
excuse
eighth.
me. I think one question we've had is comparables. And in the past, we've had the discussion on what comparables are appropriate. We've heard two from Aaron tonight, and we've used other comparables based on maybe some of the bargaining contracts that we've had or things like that. And so really, you can pick, you can pick and toss them out and do a lot of things, but in order for staff to really not spin our wheels and be able to move forward, it'd be great to, I guess, have some parameters on comparables, whether it's regionally, whether it's similar population, median income, something that gives us some guidance.
Similar budgeted cities?
Why don't we come up with a list? We'll talk to Pam about what is comparable for the agreements. And it'd be nice to use a common list of cities for
Yes.
different comparisons, I believe.
Because-
Councilmember Smith.
And Mayor, just for consistency's sake, I believe Sandy, when we were doing the budgeting process for this year, she had several cities that were comparables that we were using in that process as well. If that's still suitable, why not just go with
That
that?
was drawn from AWC, I believe.
Okay.
Mayor, maybe
Appreciate
we
that.
can, at the January 2nd meeting, maybe bring some comparables back just to agree on before we get to that point?
That would be great,
Okay?
yeah. Okay, so are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we'll not move that forward. Okay, so that's our only business item. We'll move on to the action agenda. What items do we have public comment for? Donna?
I have public comment on the marina and the judge selection, F6 and F7.
Repeat, please.
The marina
Okay,
and the judge selection.
okay, thank you. Okay, our first action item is, it's filling the interim, or not filling, but appointing an interim city manager. Mike Bacardi's leaving at the end of the month to continue his retirement. And I want to thank Mike for all his efforts. But the council has discussed, and I think we're going to appoint Chief Moody as interim city manager for the 2 weeks from January 1st through January 14th. I'm assuming he's still willing.
Not if you keep adding meetings and study sessions.
So could we have a motion for that, and then we'll have some discussion?
I move to appoint Chief Moody for the interim city manager from January 1st till the 14th. Is that right?
Is it the 13th, because Jeff starts on the
Second.
14th?
Huh?
Isn't it the 13th, because Jeff starts on the 14th? So January 1st through 13th.
Okay,
13th.
January 1st.
Okay, we have a second discussion. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Congratulations, Chief Moody.
You're it.
Okay, and the next action item is to Craig Gregory for discussion about a contract amendment.
So as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, council members, just bringing forward the change or amendment to the water comp plan contract with Carollo Engineering. It was something that originally we tried to do some cost savings on, take some elements on with staff, and with knowing that we have lost an associate engineer and not been able to backfill that to this point, we are requesting to not only backfill with the consultant to perform those duties, but also extend the contract as well to be able to fulfill and complete the water comp plan.
Okay. We have a motion.
I move to approve contract amendment number 2 with Corallo Engineers, excuse me, and authorize the mayor to sign the amendment.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I'm in favor of it.
Okay, hearing none. We have a motion and a second to approve contract amendment number 2 with Corallo Engineers and authorize the mayor to sign the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next action item, back to Director Gregory. He's going to share information about 2 TIB grants.
Again, as previously discussed, the award of 2 Transportation Improvement Board grants, both in the pavement preservation and the sidewalks program, totaling just over $760,000, and just need official acceptance of both of those grants to move forward. We will be bringing back in the weeks to come a contract to start design work for that overall project.
Thank you, Craig. We have a motion.
I move to accept the TIB grants and authorize the city manager to sign the fuel tax grant agreements and the Public Works Director and Finance Director to sign the project funding status forms.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion or questions from the council?
Just compliments to staff again on negotiating phenomenal funding sources for these projects. I love it when I read things like, this grant will cover 91%, this other grant will cover 40%, remaining funds to be attained through X, Y, and Z. Thank you very much, Craig, for your hard work in this area. This is how you do it, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Crumbs. Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the TIB grants and authorize the city manager to sign the fuel tax grant agreements and the Public Works Director and Finance Director to sign the project funding status forms. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next business item or action item, financial analyst Sandy Hines is to present amendment to the 2018 budget.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor and members of council. Tonight we have before you on the action agenda the ordinance to adopt the final adjustments to the 2018 budget for this year. Those were laid out to you at the study session last week. If any council members still had any questions about those, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. But again, this is our final opportunity to adjust the 2018 budget for new grant revenue, unexpected expenditures, any corrections, and kind of a whole kind of list of different adjustments that were presented previously.
Thank you, Sandy. Can I have the first and final reading of ordinance number 1934-1218?
Ordinance number 1934-1218, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending the annual budget for the year ending December 31st, 2018.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 1934-1218, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to the 2018 revised budget.
Second.
Okay, discussion, questions from the council?
It's been a long time since May.
All right, hearing no other comments, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1934-1218, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to the 2018 revised budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next, back to Sandy for an ordinance about the 2019 budget.
Thank you. Our second budget item for the evening, dealing with 2019. And we'll have a short presentation for you tonight. Where did mine go? There's. We'll have that up in just a second. There we go. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So I just wanted to do kind of a wrap-up presentation for the 2019 budget. It has been an interesting process, a long and quick process all at the same time, as all of you council members are familiar with. So I just thought I'd go through a little bit of our process and some of the highlights and talk about that before we get to the reading of the ordinance. So our process started internally back in August with the departments, kicking that off to the departments and asking them for their 2018 year-end estimates on revenue and expenditures, as well as their 2019 projections and new requests for services and programs and staffing for 2019. And that was a good process, working with the departments. From my understanding, it was more involvement than maybe some of the departments have had in the past. So they were happy to work with finance to be able to present their projections and their case for new requests. And so internally, that was a good process. We began a series of budget retreats with the council on August 31st. We ended up having 4 of those, so those ran through September up until the 21st. And covered all kinds of things, from doing a training with the council, many of whom were new, so doing a training kind of on a budget 101, as well as talking about the general fund, the types of revenue received and what services it pays for, and talking about the utilities, as well as getting some general direction from council on how to put this budget together for 2019. Proposed revenue sources and expenditures were provided to council by the due date of October 1st. And that was, again, it's a RCW requirement, but it's just an initial preliminary look at what the proposed sources of revenue will be to pay for services. And then the actual preliminary budget and document were presented to council on November 3rd. And that's the document and budget we've been working from since that point. So on that, we had public hearings. There was a public hearing on November 6th, 2 of them, one for the revenue and ad valorem, so that's on the property tax. And that's required for council to address the property tax and address the 1% optional increase that the council has the option to take and did take within this budget. As well as there was a public hearing on the 6th for the preliminary budget. The final budget hearing was started on November 20th and then continued to the December 4th meeting, where then it was closed. So that fulfilled all our required public hearing requirements. And then we had several study sessions for the council to discuss the budget, November 13th, 27th, and the last one being last week on December 11th, where we covered all of the preliminary budget changes that have happened since that time and addressed council questions. Some highlights about the budget and the process. As with any budget, there's always going to be challenges but plenty of opportunities as well. One of our large challenges, obviously, for this budget was just a timing issue. Having a new council coming on board, having staffing that left early in the year, and then having to deal with cleaning up 2018 first, and myself coming on board to do that. And then, so again, then having those study sessions, the budget retreats through August and September, just gave us a little bit of a late start, but we pushed through on our compressed schedule and made it. Fewer and newer staff working on the budget, so newer staff being myself, not familiar with the city of Shelton, and getting up to speed then on that. Terry acting as interim finance director and manager all at the same time, so being short, you would typically have your finance director working on the budget with the departments and the city manager and the council, but having probably that finance manager helping do some pieces of that as well. So the new staff and the fewer staff then with the compressed schedule was a challenge. And then just a challenge, but you'll also see this as an opportunity, just the new council members and having to get up to speed on budget processes and learning about the budget. Opportunities, it gave us an opportunity to update the indirect cost model. Kind of had to, but it was a good opportunity to update that to a more friendly framework and a more user-friendly model that staff can update moving forward in future years. We were able to rework the personnel budgeting. Part of the challenge with 2018 and what the issues were was the personnel budgeting was out of whack, for lack of a better term. So we were able to put that in a better format, more easy to update, look at scenarios, and so spent some time reworking the personnel budgeting. We had, again, more involvement from the department heads, and hopefully that was helpful across the board. And then the opportunity of having the new council and having fresh ideas and new perspectives and more council involved. We have fairly stable revenue. The economic environment is good right now. We had a good year with a lot of good projects coming in that provided revenue. Provided us the opportunity to separate the street operations into their own fund, which will provide transparency for the revenue and the expenditures that are for those street operations, being able to pull the TBD money out of the general fund to be able to watch that and how it's going and its reserve and what's available for the capital projects. That was a good opportunity for us to do that now. Gave us an opportunity to review the budget overall for efficiencies by working with the department heads and having them more involved in the process. They were better able to tell us what works and what doesn't work for their budgets. And then just better aligning where we budget the money to where the costs and the programs actually are happening. We found several disparities between that when we were doing the 2018 budget and fixing that of things budgeted in one area, but really the costs are showing up in another. And so you end up with one department looking like it's underspent and one department looking like it's overspent. And so trying to line those better through this 2019 budget. Some highlights for the indirect cost model. Like I said, it gave us an opportunity to update the framework. 2003 was the model that we had been working off of. Very outdated, cumbersome, lots of extra steps, and just not user-friendly. No staff around still that knew how to update it or had ever updated it before. So we updated the framework with our consultant to do that. It's updated now with the data for the current model. So our 2019 model is using the 2017 actuals because that's our most recent full year of actuals. And so we'll move forward next year into the 2020 model using the 2018. We'll also receive training from the consultants and documentation so that the next people that go to pick up this up during 2019 for the 2020 model will be able to do so. And it was an increase, obviously, in revenue to the general fund. We jumped 2 years of actuals, so those actuals increased for 2 years, which means then the reimbursement to the general fund from those other operating funds was an increase as well. And I just laid out a table here showing what the 2019 budget had been by fund and program area to the 2018 to the 2019. Street fund obviously was 0 in 2018 with the street operations in the general fund. General fund doesn't pay itself, so when the street operations were in the general fund, there was no charge for those indirect costs to support the street fund. But now that it's its own operating fund, it will pay to the general fund, as well as water, sewer, storm drain, and EM&R.
So Sandy, the change is really almost a 3-year change because the model had not been updated. Some of the costs have not been updated for 3 years. Is that
yeah, most everything for 2 years, and there's possibility that some had not been updated for 3 years, depending on how the 2017 was done. Yes. And this just a table mimics your ordinance table showing the total resources. So the general fund budget is about 15.5 million, obviously the largest portion of the city budget, with the total budget being at about 41.7 million for an overall total city budget for 2019. That's all. If council has any questions about the 19 budget that should be adopted, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, would request a first and final reading.
Okay, well, we'll start with the first and final and ask questions. Can I have first and final reading of ordinance 1935-1218?
Ordinance number 1935-1218, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adopting the budget for the year ending December 31st, 2019.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 1935-1218, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adopting the 2019 budget.
Second.
Okay. Discussion or questions for Sandy or potentially Mike?
No further questions.
No further questions at this time.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that the staff has worked very hard on this budget. We've worked hard on it too, but Sandy and Terry and Mike, I applaud you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance 1934, excuse me, wrong one. We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 1935-1218, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adopting the 2019 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next order of business is Community Director Mark Ziegler is going to share some information about the Oakland Bay Marina.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I don't know, fourth or fifth time I think I've had this in front of you. So first and foremost, I'd really like to thank the members of the Shelton Yacht Club, the Port of Shelton, our attorney, John Collins, in working through this project in order to bring this to you tonight. There is some time sensitivity to this as the Port of Shelton has declared the marina surplus, and their intent was to have this wrapped up by the end of the year, and the potential that we may not have a marina at Oakland Bay would be a prospect after the first of the year. So I appreciate you working with us through this process. I'm bringing you tonight a lease agreement and a quitclaim reversionary of interest agreement with the Shelton Yacht Club. I'll start with the easy one first, and that's the quitclaim reversionary interest. As you remember, there were 17 parcels that were deeded to the Port of Shelton back in 1950, with the port declaring that those parcels surplus, essentially their operation surplus. Those deeds would revert back to the city of Shelton ownership. They are all tideland lots, not contiguous with uplands, and really present little value to the city of Shelton. In fact, most likely some liability risk and costs associated with bringing those back on in city ownership. So in order to, the original quitclaim deed allowed the port to assign those to the Shelton Yacht Club only. There was one entity they could assign these parcels to. So tonight, the quitclaim reversionary interest is with the Shelton Yacht Club to quitclaim those 17 parcels to them for their operations, future operations at Oakland Bay Marina. The other document I'm bringing to you today is the lease agreement for the rights-of-ways. There are 4 rights-of-ways within the tideline areas within the Shelton Marina or Oakland Bay Marina proper. There's Laurel Street, there's an alley, Spruce Street, and Pine Street. Per RCW, the state wants the city to consider public access, primarily with any rights-of-ways that abut or within bodies of water. So tonight we're bringing to you this lease that would promote public access in cooperation with the Shelton Yacht Club. If you will see, I think the issue that was most discussed was on page 3, paragraph 3, which is rent. And so going back and forth with the yacht club as well as the council and information that we received, originally public access was much broader than what was discussed here for the purpose of charging fees, I guess. And one of the things that came to light really is that the Port of Shelton currently charges fees for moorage at their guest dock. So it's one thing we didn't bring into account here. So we really clarified what would be free public access to those grounds and those operations down there at the Oakland Bay Marina, and then identified areas that the Shelton Yacht Club would be able to charge fees to help them maintain their infrastructure down there, because there's considerable amount of work that needs to be done now and in the future. And I think they have ambitious goals, as you saw in your last study session, on how they can improve that area and hopefully bring more tourism and provide more amenities to the public. So those fees would be on moorage facilities, launching sites, and the guest moorage.
Okay.
I guess if open for questions at this point, if you have
I'll
any.
take public comment first.
Okay.
Public comment.
We have Dave Mariano.
Welcome back, Dave.
Yes. Dave Mariano, and Well, I live just outside the county. Outside the county, we're pretty active here in the community within Shelton. I just wanted to thank Mayor Rogers and the council for giving us a moment to come up and explain to you how important this is to us, not only to the club, but the community as a whole. All the members of the Shelton Yacht Club are in some form or other a member of the community here in Shelton. And the Ports Marina has been a fixture in the community for some 70 years now. And just the club in itself has has operated the marina for some 35 to 40 years of that lifespan. And just in regards to the right-of-way agreement itself, I mean, really we look at that as really a partnership with the city to deliver what we hope is a great improvement down at the marina site. We really do want to see it be develop into a must-see, must-use facility. We want to make the Oakland Bay Marina to have its own chapter in the city's comp plan. We want to see it supplement key community goals for tourism, recreation, jobs, all that kind of thing. But it just requires a close partnership with the city in order to realize that, and part of that is embodied in the right-of-way agreement. A lot of the things we're talking about here are also highlighted in the Shoreline Master Development Plan, so there are already priorities that are already set in place, so we're trying to carry them forward. Anyway, we have worked at great length with city staff and the port to develop something that promotes public access and allows us the tools to, I guess, manage that and charge reasonable, appropriate fees. Again, not only Mark mentioned the guest dock and what the port would do here, but Port of Greatview just installed a new boat launch in that area as well, and there's a whole rate structure that goes with that. So we're just trying to be what's normal and customary in that area. But other than that, I just encourage you to consider favorably, and I look forward to working with all of you as we develop it into something that's we can all be proud of.
Thank you, Dave. That's it? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of the city the quitclaim of reversionary interest for the 17 tideland parcels and the lease agreement for the right-of-way use with the Shelton Yacht Club for Oakland Bay Marina.
Second.
Okay. Additional or questions, comments for staff?
I just wrote down, again, I'm in favor of the Shelton Yacht Club.
I have worked on a lot of boats down at the yacht club. Mr. Burns is over here. Big fan of the yacht club. I go back as far as like Danny Davidson and Ray Orr. And I've worked on a lot of boats. I used to lay carpet. So I'm a big fan of the yacht club.
There you go.
Seems to be a common theme.
Couple fans here.
I would just like to thank the yacht club and city staff for being able to carry forward council's hope to maintain and better public access and still create something that's going to provide an opportunity here in the community. So it was really nice to see this all so neatly packaged for tonight's meeting, and I'm glad to see we're able to move this forward.
And question for Mark, maybe for John. The allowance of fees is great, and the yacht club, that meets their need for their financial plan, what's in the lease. They're all on board on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could just kind of make a shout out, I guess, to Rob Johnson, who's the attorney for the yacht club. He's been really great to work with, and I think after the last study session, he was very accommodating and did a lot of work on this lease, and I think we came up with a definition of public access that I think both protects the city's interest in making sure that there is free public access, but that they're still able to charge fees for certain things. And so I think getting that compromise is really key. Briefly, we made a couple other small changes just in like the notice provision that basically say that they're going to work with the city to kind of provide us notice on goings on if they decide to update public access. And then we changed a little bit in the assignment provision, which basically says that somewhere down the line, if they try to assign the lease to someone else that maybe the city's not comfortable with, that the city essentially can have an option to. But other than that, those are the only changes that we made from the last study session. But overall, yeah, the yacht club's been great to work with. They've been very accommodating, and I think it is a good sign of a ongoing partnership that will hopefully last for the length of the 99-year lease.
Okay, thank you, John. Anybody else have anything? Okay. I want to thank staff, John, and the Yacht Club for working through this. It's went through quickly when we thought we might have some issues, so thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Excuse me. Have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of the city the quitclaim deed of reversionary interest for the 17 tideland parcels and the lease agreement for right-of-way use with the Shelton Yacht Club for Oakland Bay Marina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thanks again, John, and Rob, and everyone else who was involved.
I'm gonna clap, Bob. You're not supposed to, but I'm going
You're out of order.
I know, out of order, I know.
Next action item is interim city manager Mike McCarty has information about our new municipal court judge.
Thank you, Your Honor, and excuse me, members of the City Council. So as you know, in November, Municipal Court Judge George Steele was elected to the position of Mason County District Court Judge, taking office January 1st. That propelled us into motion. We solicited for applications beginning on November 9th. Applications for the judge were due on December 3rd. Interviews for the 4 candidates were held on December 13th and 14th. Mary Harold and Diane Smolinski from city staff assisted me in the interview process. Because of the timing of the confirmation of the judge, we felt it was prudent to bring it forward to you tonight. And according to the council manager form of government, the city manager is responsible for appointing a municipal court judge subject to the city council's confirmation. So I'm here before you tonight to recommend the appointment and your subsequent confirmation of Stephen Greer as municipal court judge with the term commencing January 1, 2019.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
We have public comment?
Eric Valley.
Hi, Mike. Eric. I've known Mike since, I'm going to guess I was a freshman in college, but since his first year here. So I was a candidate for this position. I was a candidate for Mason County District Court Judge, and Judge Steele beat me with 47.5% of the vote, and I received 42.5%. Those are rough numbers, but that's what it was. So I have prepared comments, and they start with, I met with Commissioner-elect Sharon Trask today at the retirement party for County Commissioner Jeffries, and then I went and saw Karen Herr at her retirement party. I was at the Christmas tree lighting. I was at the Christmas parade. I was at the open houses for both of the city managers. What I'm asking you to do, I'll let the cat out of the bag. I'm asking you to, well, I'll stick with my prepared notes. Number 2 on my list of points is that Commissioner Dorsey certainly does look good this evening. And that leads right to number 3, which I let out of the bag at the beginning when I said I've known Mr. McCarty since his first year here. So I guess here is where my main point, and I'm looking at the clock, comes. I'm asking you to send Mike off. I'm asking that his last official act not be to appoint Stephen Greer, who is from Kitsap County and doesn't know this county and doesn't know this city. And I'm not trying, this is not sour grapes. I'm here speaking for the good of the order. Mr. Greer got 15% of the vote in the primary election. I spent 8 years campaigning, 8 months, 6 solid, 7.5 campaigning. I have personal relationships with I don't believe I'm overstating it, with literally all of the board members. I've had offices in downtown Shelton for 1998, for 20 years, since 1998. That's point number 4. Point number 5 is my community ties. I won't go into my resume. That was part of the application process. I don't know who the other candidates were, but I do know how the interview process went. Some other notes I made, I have 30 seconds left. Rob Johnson is living proof that you can be a nice guy and a great lawyer. I'm a team player. I ran for district court judge because I thought I was the best candidate for the job. And I came in at 15 points is a lot, but it's a close second. I've been appearing in this court since 1998. My family's been here forever. My father, I did want to say this, I think my dad watched the Harlem Globetrotters play right here in 1942, because I think that's when the Globetrotters came. It's a big ask. I thank you for your time. Frankly, I don't expect to get it. But I make this request in all good conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else?
No one else,
Okay.
Mayor.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this?
You know, I'll tell you what, excuse me, respectfully, I will take my leave, not that I need to, for my sake and for yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Is there a motion listed?
So we just need a motion for confirmation, correct?
Yes.
I move to confirm the appointment of Shelton Municipal Court Judge per the appointment recommendation of interim city manager Mike McCarty.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Discussion? Here.
Thank you, Mike. I know that probably wasn't easy. Thank you.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we have a motion and a second to confirm the appointment of the Shelton Municipal Court Judge per appointment recommendation by interim city manager Mike McCarty. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thanks, everyone. Okay, last, and it is last, we have city manager report from interim city manager Mike McCarty, and I'm going to take this time before you give your report to thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very much for taking time out of your busy retirement to sacrifice again for this city. And I know the council and I personally all appreciate that sacrifice, and you've been a great assistance to me and a great assistance to this council and this city, and I truly indebted to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate those words more than you know.
As
So,
I
thank
am
you.
as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have a very short report tonight. One thing I want to do is plug my former employer, the Association of Washington Cities, and you may have seen come across your mailbox a save the date for City Action Days. This is a great opportunity to drive the short distance to Olympia and meet with other city officials from all over the state, meet with our delegation, as you do frequently anyway. But it's just a great demonstration of a show of support from cities around the state, and I encourage you to get with Donna if you are interested in registering, and she can help you do that. Just as an aside, I got an email from Jeff Knighton today. He asked if anybody had registered for City Action Days yet, so he's all over it. So that was a good thing. I just want to say thank you also to the council. You have a great opportunity to propel this city forward in ways that I think have never really been here before. Nothing against the former commission members, but I think as a 7-member council, you've moved the city of Shelton into a policy and legislative direction that was a long time coming, frankly. I'm very encouraged by each and every one of you. You are committed to this city and doing the best thing for the citizens of this community in all of the decisions that I've seen you make so far, and I'm sure you'll continue that under the new city manager of Jeff Knighton as well. I also want to say thank you to the department heads, Craig, Mark, Darren, Terry, Pam. Thank you very much for also coming out of retirement and filling in as interim HR director. Diane, where did she go? She was there. Donna as interim city clerk, and I'll talk about her in just a second. And I, too, want to especially thank the support of John Collins and Kathleen Haggard, your city attorneys. They are outstanding municipal attorneys, and what direction you choose to go in the future with regards to the continuing of the contract with them or other legal opportunities, that will be a call that Jeff will be able to make. It's not on my hot button list, however. I think that right now you're well served by John and Kathleen. City Clerk, I had fully expected to make a decision on the city clerk position. We had interviews, what, about a month ago now? December 4th. Thank you. Thank you, Donna, for keeping me on the straight and narrow. On December 4th, we had interviews. We interviewed 5 candidates, and we had, frankly, 5 pretty strong candidates. The interview panel, we narrowed that down to 2 candidates. And subsequently, I talked with Jeff Knighton, and I explained to him where we were and the quality of the candidates that we had on the table, one of whom is Donna Nald. And so back and forth conversations, ultimately Jeff asked if he could make that call. And I felt that it was only fair to him. The clerk's position works very, very closely with the city manager. And I think that it is important for Jeff to have the opportunity to get to know Donna a little better, to interview the second candidate as well, and for him to make that city clerk appointment. So sorry, Donna.
It's okay.
She shed some tears in my office the other day, so she knows. So thank you. But I do want to especially call out Donna. She has been incredibly helpful to me as you know, just figuring out where the pencil sharpener is. You know, just the little things that she knows about. And I also want to make mention of another staff person that I think has really stepped up to the plate, and that's Mary Harold, confidential assistant in HR. And I know that Pam feels very strongly about the support that Mary has given to her as well. So I guess to sum it up, I wish I could mention every single staff person in the city, but you have a great staff here. You have a great staff here. And with the addition of Jeff and a future new finance director, which that position is currently being advertised, applications are due the end of the month, I fully expect you're going to have a great leadership team that will be able to work with the council and all the department heads as we move forward. So thank you again for the opportunity. It's been great. I am ready to go back to shorts and flip-flops, regardless that it's wintertime. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. Further business, items of discussion, Councilman
Well,
Cranch?
I just wanted to throw 2 cents in here. It's been quite a hectic year for all of us. Big change for the city of Shelton, moving from a 3-person commission to a 7-person council. And Mike's been talking about this for about 20 years or so. And, you know, so the thing about it is I want everybody to recognize that without the leadership of Bob stepping into this situation, it takes a special kind of person that can come in amongst all these brats and get this thing kind of settled in there and work with the city manager and coming out of where we did in this past few months and stuff. You deserve a lot of credit, because I know 6.5 years, that is the hot seat. That can be a very difficult place to sit. And so I think Bob needs a lot of kudos, a lot of respect, and I thank you very much, Bob, for stepping in and being our mayor, okay?
Thank you. Further comments, discussion?
I personally want to thank Mike. I've known Mike for many
Long
years,
time.
long time.
Yeah.
Highest respect. Each time we thought that he could come and help us, it wasn't his time. The last time was his time. And we just appreciate you immensely. And your wife.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, she gave me permission to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It always is better when the wife gives you permission, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, thank you very much.
Happy
We
wife,
appreciate
happy life.
Yes.
Isn't that true?
Anything else? All right. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, January 2nd, due to the holiday on January 1st. no, excuse me, Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019 at 6 PM. This meeting's adjourned.